Eala met fans at Nike Fort Bonifacio in Taguig before heading to the president.
I am too stressed. I am pretty nervous.
On July 13th, 2026, those two worlds became one.
Alex, you have such pride to the Philippines, and not only because of your success, also because the grace which you handle that success.
Picture the first scene. It's late morning in Bonifacio, Global City. A line stretches outside a Nike store as fans wait eagerly for a special event called Play Mind Games with Eala. The session promises a conversation about pressure, preparation, and the countless hours a professional athlete spends improving when no cameras are around. Near the front of the line, a young woman grips her phone with both hands. Someone standing behind her says what many are quietly feeling, "I'm so nervous." Now picture the second scene. It's the evening of that same Monday inside the ceremonial hall of Malacanang Palace. The President of the Philippines sits at the head of the room. Walking through the doors is 21-year-old Eala, who had officially climbed to a career-high world number 28 in the WTA rankings released earlier that day. Moments later, she stands before the audience and admits, in her own words, that she is pretty nervous too. Two very different rooms. One shared emotion. To understand why an entire country turned one Monday into two remarkable celebrations, you have to rewind 9 days. On July 4th, 2026, on center court at Wimbledon, Alexandra Eala, the tournament's No. 29 seed and playing in only her third Wimbledon main draw, defeated defending champion Iga Swiatek 7-6-9, 6-2. With that victory, she became the first Filipino singles player in the Open era to reach the fourth round of a Grand Slam. Her run ended in the round of 16 with a 3-set loss to Jasmine Paolini. Then she boarded a flight home. What awaited her was far more than a routine media tour. It was a nation deciding, in the span of a single week, that this achievement deserved to be celebrated together. The real tension in this story isn't between Eala and another player. There is no rivalry unfolding in Manila that Monday. The tension is quieter, and it exists within the person standing at the center of both rooms. On one side is the private athlete, the competitor who spends endless hours training away from the spotlight. The player whose ranking climbed from around number 140 at the beginning of 2025 to inside the world's top 30 by the summer of 2026, one practice session, one match, one flight, and one recovery day at a time. On the other side is the public symbol, the young woman millions of Filipinos now see as an inspiration and a representative of what is possible. When the Presidential Communications Office later published the president's remarks, the opening message wasn't about forehands, rankings, or trophies. It was about character.
You have such pride to the Philippines.
He told her that she had brought immense pride to the Philippines, not simply because of her achievements on the court, but because of, in his words, the grace with which you have handled your success.
Not only because of your success, also because the grace which you handle that success.
For many Filipinos watching the live stream, that moment carried more weight than any scoreline. It was the kind of statement that transforms an athlete into a national symbol. And a symbol is far heavier to carry than a ranking. Eala is only 21 years old. Her next tournament, the Mubadala City DC Open in Washington, begins on July 25th. That leaves just 12 days between receiving one of the country's highest honors and stepping back onto a hard court for a first-round match. That is the unique challenge she now faces. Nobody planned it that way. It is simply what happens when a career rises faster than the calendar can keep up. The story really began that morning, a part of the day much of the international coverage overlooked. Nike Fort in Bonifacio, Global City opened its doors for an event the company described as a morning of stories, lessons, and meaningful conversations beyond the court. Those final words, beyond the court, captured the purpose of the gathering. This was never intended to be just another autograph session. It was presented as a conversation about the mindset behind elite performance. Eala arrived wearing a crisp white shirt featuring a Filipino-inspired design. Lifestyle reporters quickly noticed the ruffled socks she paired with the outfit, and GMA Lifestyle even published a feature on where fans could buy them. But inside the venue, the focus was far deeper than fashion. The discussion centered on pressure, preparation, resilience, and the countless unseen hours that shape a professional athlete long before television cameras ever arrive. According to ABS-CBN's reporting, Eala reflected on the younger version of herself, the girl who dreamed of moments like these, and admitted that reality had become even better than she had ever imagined. That was the morning. The evening carried a very different atmosphere. At Malacanang Palace, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. welcomed Eala and her family during a homecoming reception, where he presented her with a presidential citation recognizing her historic Wimbledon campaign. According to the Philippine news agency, the citation honored her as the first Filipino to reach the round of 16 in a Grand Slam singles tournament. The ceremony unfolded inside the palace's ceremonial hall with family members present as the president addressed the gathering. He began warmly. "Whenever we have these programs here, I always begin by saying it is my pleasure to receive you. And when I say that tonight, it's not polite. I really am so happy to have you here." Later, he added, "You have brought such pride to the Philippines, to the Filipinos, and not only because of your success, but also because of the grace with which you handle that success. You show the very best qualities of Filipinos." What stands out is what the president chose to emphasize. He did not focus on a single victory, a ranking, or a statistic. Instead, he praised the character with which Eala has handled success. The celebration had become about more than tennis. It had become about the person representing the country. Then came the moment that quietly became the emotional heart of the day. When Eala rose to speak, she began with a confession few elite athletes ever make in public. "I have to confess, I normally do not get very nervous when I have to talk, but today is the exception. I am pretty nervous." The contrast was striking. Just days earlier, she had walked onto center court at Wimbledon and defeated a 6-time Grand Slam champion before millions of viewers around the world without showing any visible sign of nerves. Yet, standing before the president of her own country carried a different kind of pressure. She then shared the words that the Philippine news agency highlighted as the defining moment of the ceremony. "I feel very seen hearing that come from you. I feel like all the hard work that I've done is seen. All the hours that aren't on TV are seen and validated and appreciated." Every professional athlete understands those invisible hours, the early mornings, the lonely practices, the setbacks, and the sacrifices that rarely become headlines. Very few ever receive public recognition for them in the country they proudly represent. On that evening inside Malacanang, Eala did. And before she finished, she reminded everyone that the achievement belonged to more than one person. Speaking in Tagalog, she said, "This is our victory. Ours together, all of us." She closed with a message that perfectly captured why the day resonated so deeply across the Philippines. "I take great pride in being Filipino. I carry the flag with me wherever I go." It was the perfect ending to a day that celebrated not only a remarkable tennis player, but also a young woman whose journey has become a source of pride for an "So I promise that I will continue to represent the Philippines in the best way that I possibly can." That single promise transformed July 13th from a news event into a lasting memory. To understand why the Philippine government moved so quickly to honor Eala, you have to look at what happened before Manila ever opened its doors. It wasn't the palace that first told the world Eala had become something special. It was center court. After her stunning Wimbledon victory on July 5th, international media reached the same conclusion almost simultaneously. ESPN led its tennis coverage by declaring that she had dethroned the defending champion. Sky Sports described the result as a huge shock. The Athletic, through the New York Times, placed her run at the top of its Day 6 Wimbledon recap, writing that Eala had exploded into the sport's wider consciousness. Those were not Filipino headlines. They came from some of the world's most influential sports organizations, the outlets that shape the global conversation around tennis. When several of them arrive at the same conclusion on the same weekend, governments notice. That is the part of the journey most fans never see. The reception at Malacanang Palace on July 13th did not happen in isolation. It was made possible because what unfolded on center court days earlier was impossible to ignore. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. was not creating the story. He was formally recognizing one that the international tennis world had already acknowledged. Now widen the frame. Filipinos have celebrated sporting heroes before. Manny Pacquiao received state honors. Hidilyn Diaz was welcomed after winning the country's first Olympic gold medal in Tokyo. Those moments are part of the nation's sporting history. What made July 13, 2026, different was the pace. A Nike fan gathering in the morning. A presidential reception that evening. Another public fan event already scheduled for July 15 at Glorieta Activity Center. Within a matter of days, both the private sector and the government were honoring the same young athlete, almost like two runners passing the same baton in a relay. That kind of momentum happens only when a country's institutions are trying to catch up with a career accelerating faster than anyone expected. On the very day she received her presidential citation, Eala also reached a new career high ranking of world number 28. The ranking list validated her achievements on the court. The ceremony validated what those achievements meant to the nation. Both happened within the same 24 hours. Beneath the celebration lies an important reality. At world number 28, Eala is firmly inside the seeded group for the major hard court tournaments. That changes everything. The next 12 to 18 months of her career will be fundamentally different from the last. She will no longer be the unexpected challenger catching established stars by surprise. She will become one of the players others study, prepare for, and target. That is a different level of professional tennis. And in many ways, it begins when she returns to competition at the Mubadala City DC Open in Washington on July 25th. There is another truth worth remembering. The match the Philippines continues to celebrate is one she ultimately did not win. Her remarkable Wimbledon journey ended in the round of 16 with a hard-fought 4-6, 6-4, 3-6 defeat to Jasmine Paolini. The reception at Malacanang was never about lifting a trophy. It was about crossing a threshold. According to the Philippine news agency, Eala herself reminded those in attendance that the recognition was not the finish line. Her focus, she said, remains on achieving even greater milestones. She now takes a scheduled 3-week break before beginning the North American hardcourt swing at the Mubadala City DC Open, a WTA 500 event running from July 25th through August 2nd. The field is expected to feature top names including Marta Kostyuk, Naomi Osaka, and Venus Williams. Her return will not be easy. But that is exactly what elite tennis demands. The invisible hours she spoke about inside Malacanang, the practices no cameras record, the repetitions no headlines celebrate, the sacrifices no crowd ever applauds, begin again on the practice court long before the first match in Washington. The difference now is that an entire country understands those hours exist. She still has to live them. Perhaps that is what July 13, 2026, will ultimately be remembered for. 2 rooms. One Monday. In the morning, a line of fans waiting outside a sneaker store, hoping for a chance to meet the athlete they admired. In the evening, a ceremonial hall where that same athlete admitted she was nervous standing before the president of her country. At first glance, they seemed like 2 completely different places. In reality, they were telling the same story. Both rooms were filled with people searching for something larger than a tennis result. The Nike event was built around the idea of meaningful conversations beyond the court. Looking back, everything that truly mattered that day happened beyond the court. Alex Eala no longer represents only a ranking or a breakthrough run to the Wimbledon round of 16, even though those achievements made the day possible. She represents something much bigger. She has become an answer to a question the Philippines has quietly asked for generations. Can one of our own stand on the biggest stage in the world, carry our flag with confidence, and represent us with both excellence and grace? On July 13th, Alex Eala answered that question in 2 languages. First, she reminded the nation that all the hours that aren't on TV are seen. Then, speaking in the language of home, she gave the moment back to the people who believed in her from the very beginning. It was never just her victory. She made sure it belonged to all of them.